Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me in this continued series, The Keys to Prosperity. Today's particular key, Feng Shui. However, today I'm going to be talking specifically about people Feng Shui. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you surrounding yourself with? I spoke in the previous video about how these thought forms, if people are thinking the same thing, these thought forms connect energetically, and then they create this massive thought form that has legs and that takes on a life of its own. So the question is, who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you surrounding yourself with, and what are they saying about themselves in money and prosperity? Just prosperity in general. Not just money, but what are they saying about themselves regarding their prosperity? What are they saying with others surrounding prosperity? Then what are they saying about their community and the folks and the spaces that they're in regarding prosperity? So that's 3 different levels. For example, I know when I grew up, I used to hear some terms like money don't grow on trees, rich people are evil, especially in the culture that I grew up within the Baptist Christian culture. There's that scripture, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. Hearing all this stuff when I was younger, you hear things, whatever, but the more you hear things, the more they really stick to you and your subconscious and your neurology. A lot of people when they're younger, if they can't overcome something or they can't overcome some barriers or blockages in their lives, that's because something was told to them, done to them when they were younger, that's now affecting them as an adult. There's studies on this, you can research this all you want to. That's on one level. But now if you think about prosperity, money, resources, it's the same thing. So if you grew up and someone kept saying money is the root of all evil, people with money ain't never did no good for nobody. Business people are all corrupt. If you grew up listening to all of that, how is that affecting your subconscious? That's essentially what people were telling you growing up. Then you grow up as an adult, you have your own ideas about money. Maybe you've tried to overcome something in your life financially or regarding resources, but you're never able to seem to break the barrier or cross that particular finish line regarding a particular thing. So then you have your own ideas about money. Maybe how you can never make it, life is too hard. So but you grew up with people telling you things about resources, finances, prosperity. Then you have your own ideas about prosperity and abundance. And then the last one is the community. The community that you're in, that you live in, or that you associate with, or your friends, or even groups that you belong to, what are their ideas about money and prosperity and resources? I know for some people that might live in the hood, in the ghetto. What are people's ideas about prosperity and money when you're there? Obviously, it's not very positive. What can you do to combat that? I'll use myself as an example. Went to college, came back home. I was a part of a particular group. Amazing group of people, very great, very humble, very nice people. But I noticed that the more I participated in their events, the more that I participated in what they were just doing overall, whether it was on the phone, whether it was going there in person, the more I noticed, for some reason, my prosperity energy is lowering every single time I'm with them. I didn't really understand that until about maybe a year and a half ago. Then it clicked and I was like, wait, every time I'm with them for some reason, like money always leaves me. And it's not because I'm, for example, again, this is my background with church. You go to church, give your tithes, you give your offerings, and sometimes there's like a love offering for the pastor. There may be a special collection for the building fund. Maybe another thing, people are going on a special trip, you want to give to that. Church sometimes is like constant giving. And in many ways, I get it. The church, they need to upkeep their expenses. They need to make sure that they're getting enough money and resources to do what they need to do. They depend on what they make to upkeep themselves and to upkeep their staff and to upkeep their pastor full time based off of funds that are being given from the congregation. So I understand that. But there was one particular church that I went to, in many ways was a cult. Like, everything was paid. You had to pay for everything. They had the regular tithes, had the offering, the special love offering for the pastor. Then that particular day was like the mother's birthday. So people were giving gifts to the mother. Oh, by the way, the mother was the mother of the pastor. Had a special thing for her. Plus, they had a special offering giving for the wife of the pastor because it was her anniversary. So that was that. Then on top of that, when the preacher went to go preach, when he was preaching, you had to give him something. After he was done, you had to give him something. Plus, you had to pay for the preacher's notes. The preacher was actually like giving people notes before he was preaching, talking about, okay, this is what I'm going to be talking about. I want you to like write notes down, piece of paper and a pen. People had to pay for the notes. You had to pay for the freaking notes of what the pastor was talking about. On top of that, you know, when you go to a church or even a play or a show that give out a program, you had to pay for the program for the church. Okay. The pastor was driving around in a Rolls Royce. So in an instant like that, that is like crazy overload, taking advantage of people, having people pay for things that's like not necessary. Paying for the program, paying for the notes. And they were taking credit cards. People were busy swiping their credit cards and giving cash and checks. And I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. So I was not a member of that church. I happened to go there once because I had a performance. That's the first and last time I went. But needless to say, that's excessive. But the group that I was with, it wasn't like I was necessarily giving them money. Like every time we met or did a phone call, it wasn't like the person that was in charge ever asked for money. It just so happened that after we did the event or like during the event, something would pop up that would make me either have a loss of resources or a loss of finances. I remember this happened many times. Where, like right after the event, all of a sudden I had an unexpected bill come in the mail. There was another time I had like a series of money-making events coming up during like the high intensity part of me being a part of the group. All those events like went away and I was like, what's happening here? And it wasn't until I realized, you know, these keys to prosperity. I was like, oh, it's the group. The thought form of the group, what am I saying? The thought form of the group was one that was of lack. So, although I think in many ways by myself, my prosperity energy center was, you know, it was decent. It was nice, but it wasn't necessarily one of lack. However, when I was a part of the group and there was more than like 10, 15, 20, 25 people there, again, when the thought forms come together, it doesn't even matter if your thought form is like very strong. Like once there's like a lot of people sort of in the fray of things, everyone else's thought forms together can overtake your very strong thought form unless your thought form is like super duper amazing on like the energy of like a sage or a saint. Super duper advanced. And like that's possible. But for someone like me at that particular time, like it wasn't. For me, being a part of this group, I finally realized, oh, okay. Although this group is doing amazing things, I can no longer be associated with them because if I continue to be, my prosperity energy center will continue to decrease and be lower. And I will never be able to break through with what I really want to do with my life in terms of attracting prosperity unless I leave the group. I say all of that to say, who are you surrounding yourself with? In some cases, maybe you can't necessarily break away from the people or the persons that you were with because maybe it's where you live, you're just connected to them in some particular way where you just can't find a way to like get away from them. But there has to be a way for you to continue to increase your prosperity energy level while you are with these people, with these persons. Because the more you're with them and the more that you allow their energy subconsciously, not like you're saying, okay, take me now, take all my prosperity. No, that's not what you're doing. But again, on an energetic level, how can you protect yourself and how can you move yourself forward so that you can continue to attract and to receive prosperity? Interesting questions, right? I will say this, if you are in a position where you can break away from certain groups that you think may be hindering your prosperity, I'll say do that. Because not everyone in our life is healthy and is good for us. But if you're in a state where you can't necessarily break away from those people or those things that you think may be holding down your prosperity, message me. And I'll find a way for us to work together so that you can still increase or enhance your prosperity while you're among these people. Because again, in some cases, you may not be able to necessarily break away from them. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. Feel free to contact me. Check out my website, kadeem1.com. Check out some of the things that I have to offer. Check out some of the ways that we can work together and ways you can just live your best life. We can upgrade your light. Thanks so much for joining me today in this prosperity series, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.